we have Darren Liu coming up from Aptorum Group. It's ticker on NASDAQ, APM. And there is Darren. How's your day going, Darren?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Good to be here. Yeah.
We are so glad to have you. I see your presentation. I'll let you take it away, sir.
Sure, yeah. So thanks everyone for your time. My name is Darren Liu. I'm the President and Executive Director of Aptorum Group. Today, actually, it's a pleasure to be here today. I'll present to you a little bit about our company and some of our exciting catalysts we've got coming up in the year of 2021 as well. Just for those who joined us the first time about our company, just wanted to give you a little bit of background. So we're established almost as far back as 2010. It was previously part of a biotech investment fund. And around 2016, we spun off some of the assets of the fund. And as a result, that created a standalone biopharmaceutical company to what is called Aptorum Group today. Aptorum, we focus on what we call unmet medical needs, including orphan with oncology-focused diseases, infectious diseases, which is always a very hot area right now, metabolic diseases, as well as some of our programs in women's health. As a result of that, we have over 15 therapeutic drug candidates that are currently under active investigation and active development itself. Our business strategy is to focus on early stage research. So very often we get our hands involved at drugs that are at the discovery stage and really investing in our resources and development expertise to drive them forward into what we call the phase 2 proof of concept human trials. And after the phase 2, typically we keep our options open, including but not limited to continue to drive the ultimate phase 3 pivotal trials ourselves, or to actually seek partnerships with some of the external, much larger pharmaceutical companies. And we deliberately keep these options open because we wanted to maximize the return to our investors at that point in time. So we are typically focused on what we call early stage of discovery all the way until the phase 2 proof of concept stage. And part of our regulatory focus is initially the US FDA. So typically, is where most of our expertise are. And we believe that, the US FDA is the gold standard for drug development. But that's not to say we don't focus on other jurisdictions. So typically, once we've achieved some proof of concept human data, we typically will bring the drug back into other major jurisdictions, including Europe, including China, and other major countries such as Australia and Japan as well. And by background, our company is listed on the NASDAQ. It's traded under the ticker symbol APM since just over 2 years ago. It was December 2018 when we were listed. And last year, over the summer, we were also cross-listed on the Euronext Paris under the ticker APM as well. Our principal executive office is based here in London, in the UK. Myself and a number of the directors are located here. However, we do have a number of research and development facilities. One of our major development facilities is based over in Toronto, in Canada, where we have access to a GMP manufacturing lab, where we conduct most of our GLP studies, including some of our upcoming clinical trials, which are conducted out of the North America, and that using the Toronto office as our coordination hub for some of our human clinical trials as well. Overall, as a whole, we have 31 employees in the company, and we also work with another 48 or so scientific advisors and consultants with the expertise in their respective area of drug development as well. And just a quick overview of some of the key staff here. As I said, my name is Darren Liu, and my background has been more in the banking side, so I have over 13 years in the global capital market experience. Previously, I was working for Barclays Capital, and before that, I attained my chartered accountant qualification with Ernst & Young here in London, and also my CFA as a destination here in the UK as well. Our CEO, Mr. Ian Huynh, who's also the major founder of the company and also major shareholder of the company, he owns over 60% of the company as a result of his early seeding and investment activities. He himself was a graduate from Princeton University, majoring in economics, after which he joined Janus Mutual Funds. It was known back then in the Denver office as a US healthcare equity research analyst. And through that experience, he had over 15 years of global asset management, who is now serving as our CEO and major founder of the company as well. Our third executive director, Dr. Clark Chan, who is also our chief medical officer. He was trained an MD here in London at University College of London, subsequent to which he attained his specialist training over in Singapore with the National University Hospital. And subsequently, he spent most of his career before joining Aptorum as a operations director and deputy general manager at the Raffles Medical Group in Singapore and Hong Kong as well. Our head of research development, Dr. Thomas Lee, was previously spent most of his career with Celgene and Novartis. It was actually at Celgene where he was part of the candidate selection committee of the company, and he was primarily responsible for selecting the portfolio of preclinical stage assets at Celgene and responsible for developing them into their respective clinical stage. I believe that over his career, he worked on over 25 assets, over 8 of which have reached the market and a number of which have reached blockbuster sales as well. And sometime over the last year, we were also joined by Dr. Herman Weiss, who is the CEO of one of our subsidiary companies called Clavis Life Sciences, which is focused on microbiome research. Before that, he had over 20 years of medical experience. He was recently a chairman of the board of directors of Todos Medico, and before that, he was head of clinical development of a NASDAQ-listed company, Juniper Pharmaceuticals, before it was subsequently acquired by a much larger pharmaceutical company. At this stage, I'd like to present to you a little bit of a snapshot about some of our key assets of our portfolio. Because of the time limitation, we won't be able to talk about the entire portfolio, but I just wanted to highlight some of our key assets in the portfolio where it has achieved the latest advancement in terms of our portfolio development. Here we're presenting both two drugs and 2 non-drug assets. The first drug asset I'd like to present to you is a drug asset called ALS4. ALS4 is actually a completely first-in-class novel small molecule drug, which is developed for targeting a very deadly bacterial disease called MRSA. Some people would know that as the superbug, and is actually classified by the WHO, the World Health Authority, as a high priority development target in terms of gram-positive bacteria. It is a bacteria that is, despite existing antibiotics, is still responsible for over 25% mortality rate for blood infection of MRSA, over 70% of recurrence rate for skin infection, and actually extremely over 50% mortality rate when it comes to pneumonia infection as well. In fact, it's actually one of the bacteria that has also significantly affected some of the COVID patients as a result of the lung infection itself. This particular drug, we've been developing it since the inception of Aptorum. We took on the asset from discovery stage all the way subsequently. We could perform the lead optimization and IND enabling studies. In fact, actually, in terms of the latest status, as of late March, we made the announcement to the market that it has commenced what we call the phase 1 clinical trials over in Canada, where we are conducting over 48 healthy volunteers as part of our phase 1. A single ascending dose and also multiple ascending dose trials for our drug, largely to assess safety and toxicity and some of the pharmacokinetics effect in humans itself. We're very pleased to announce that so far, in terms of the 2 cohorts of healthy volunteers that we've completed, we've seen no adverse effects whatsoever. And as a result, that actually it has been proceeding very, very smoothly in terms of phase 1 trials. We're now moving on to what we call the cohort C of our phase 1 trials. And we expect to continue to drive these phase 1 trials over these single ascending and multiple ascending dose human volunteers over the course of the summer itself, and expecting to target the completion of most of our phase 1 trials by Q3, end of Q3 this year, around September time this year, to complete most of our phase 1 trials. And hopefully within that, before the end of 2021, we'll be able to launch even more exciting phase 2 clinical trials, in particular with potential number of indications to play for, including MRSA bacteremia. As I said earlier, MRSA skin and soft tissue infection is also a major disease indication as well, which we'll be looking to commence the phase 2 trials in Q4 this year of 2021. The second drug asset I'd like to bring to your attention is our SACT1 asset. SACT1 asset, again, it's what we call a repurposed drug. It's a small molecule repurposed drug based off an existing FDA-approved drug. And this drug were actually generated from our internal drug discovery platform, where we've targeted very hard-to-treat cancer diseases called neuroblastoma. Neuroblastoma is actually a oncology disease which ravages primarily children. It's a pediatric-centric oncology diseases. It's basically a very nasty cancers that grow along the nerves. And despite existing therapies available, the mortality rate is close to 60%. So about 60% of children do not survive the 5-year survival period. This drug, actually, since our announcement last year, We have now completed what we call a pre-IND meeting with the US FDA. Actually, we've been told by the US FDA that they are not going to put any sort of clinical hold on our IND application. So as a result of that, within the next few months, we'll be actively looking to prepare and submit the IND application, most likely over the July time, to submit the IND application for SACT1 targeted neuroblastoma to commence what we call the phase 1b/2a trials. As I said, this is a repurposed drug based off an existing approved drug, and therefore the phase 1 trials is no longer really required because safety is actually already assured. We're going to start what we call a phase 1b/2a trial directly in neuroblastoma patients. We're now targeting over 20 or so initial stage 4 unresponsive patients with neuroblastoma to test this drug as part of phase 1b/2a, both from a dose escalation study standpoint and obviously some secondary outcomes, including observation of some of the early signs of efficacy in terms of tumor shrinkage, for example, on some of these neuroblastoma patients. So, with all things go well, we hope to be able to start the phase 1b/2a trial subject to the IND application to the US FDA towards end of Q3, if not early Q4 this year of SACT1. I also wanted to move on to two very exciting non-drug assets. One of our initial non-drug asset is a what we call rapid technology, RPIDD technology, which is a liquid biopsy-based rapid pathogen diagnostics technology. So using a blood sample and performing a genetic sequencing on your blood sample to diagnose what type of infectious disease or pathogens is within that particular patient itself. Now, our first announcement of this technology was back in September last year, where we in-licensed this technology from a Singapore government-based research institute called the A-STAR. As a result, since then, we've now actively bringing this forward into what we call human clinical validation process. In fact, actually, very imminently now, we're looking to start human clinical validation studies on this technology, testing on actual infected patients' blood of this technology as well. We expect this technology to be validated over the course of the remainder of this year, and we hope to be release some very exciting data out of this technology towards the end of the year before we start what we call pre-commercialization preparation of bringing this technology forward into use in the market. The technology itself is based on liquid biopsy, as I said, using a blood sample and a small drop of blood to be able to identify what potentially the type of pathogens that is affecting the body itself. The technology is very unique. It brings around a number of advantages over existing other technology, including the ability to rapidly turn over the results. We're targeting within 24 hours of turning over the results on what we call an unbiased basis. So this technology actually approaches infectious disease on an unbiased basis with a very wide scope of application, including the identification of bacteria, DNA and RNA-based viruses, fungi, as well as parasites as well. So it's very, very unique in that sense, the fact that it's actually operating on an unbiased basis to allow a broad spectrum of potential pathogens to be identified under this technology. Now, practically, the reason why we also like this technology so much is that it potentially brings the existing cost of genetic sequencing of blood sample by more than 60%. At the moment, it's as you can understand that a lot of infectious disease patients do not get access as a first-line diagnostics to this type of genetic sequencing analysis. Very much is a cost-prohibitive exercise. Each of these tests, on average, costs around $2,500 for a diagnosis to happen, which is extremely cost-prohibitive. And through our technology and our kit, we believe we can bring down this cost between 60 and over the longer term 80%. Of these existing costs right now, allowing this technology to be brought forward into the what we consider to be first-line diagnostics and slowly replacing some of these much more inaccurate and long processes such as blood culture, PCR-based technology, which is biased, and replacing these with a more robust genetic sequence-based approach towards infectious disease. And this, which is going to be our long-term aim in bringing this technology forward. The other technology I'd like to bring to your attention is our Nativus Well DOI NLS2 supplement, which is a novel supplement that we've been developing for the last number of years, targeting women's health, including menopause. is actually a supplement based off a bioactive ingredient that was identified in a edible plant. It's called the cinnamon vine, which is primarily found and consumed in Asia. And we were able to identify one of the bioactive protein, which is primarily responsible for reactivating the production of estrogen in women. Also alleviate some of the side effects such as osteoporosis, which is the loss of bone density, where during the menopause cycle, a lot of women suffer from that. And now supplement was able to demonstrate in our lab to be able to reverse the osteoporosis and even some of the menopausal symptoms as well. Imminently now, we're actually looking to commercialize and distribute this supplement. Actually, as we speak, we're actively now driving forward to our distribution process in the UK here, in Europe, as well as in parts of Asia as well. So actually, this supplement is currently being manufactured over in our Canadian facility, and hopefully within a very short time, we'll be able to be available for purchase in the market itself.
Darren, want to give you a 5-minute warning here?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be done in very shortly. And so I just wanted to also highlight on some of our recent press releases where we have actually made announcements to the market as well, including this particular press release that was released just around on May the 6th, so a couple of weeks ago, where we've entered into a strategic development agreement with a major pharmaceutical company called Accelerate. Accelerate is a Spain-based pharmaceutical company. They have over 5,000 staff across the world, which is a company focused on women's health. And we're very glad to enter into agreement with Accelerate to develop one of our what we call novel preclinical stage candidate targeting women's gynecological conditions, including endometriosis, which is a very hard to treat uterus-based lesion diseases, which affect 1 in 10 women itself. We're very excited by that because they've actually identified a strong interest in our preclinical stage candidate and looking to develop this candidate for the European Union markets initially and the Latin markets with an option to expand the US markets for this particular candidate as well. So we're very excited to be working strategically with Accelerate on one of our other early stage, preclinical stage candidate for women's health. And also like to bring to your attention to our other recent news release. This was released back in April 2022. In effect, actually, we've entered into an option to license agreement with Yale University, where we're looking to expand our portfolio further into the autoimmune and oncology diseases space. So within that, we have an option to now evaluate and also in-license a number of what we call immunomodulators, and these are immunomodulators able to affect and impact the way our body modulate in terms of autoimmune diseases such as arthritis, lupus, that type of thing as well. What we like about these number of immunomodulators is the ability to target multiple autoimmune diseases that are currently what we consider to be unmet medical needs for our human itself. So we're very excited to be partnering with Yale University. As I said, we are currently evaluating these immunomodulators to identify the optimal drug candidate to bring this forward into its respective clinical stage as well. At this point in time, I've actually come to reach the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take some questions if there are any in the floor.
So the slide that you had with your drug assets and your non-drug assets, you had a nice chart showing. Yeah, I think I see it looking. Yeah, that one. Where can investors find this? This is like an excellent resource that I wish a lot more pharma biotech companies would be able to provide. Where can investors go to look at this on their own time?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So our website is fully public. As I said, we're a public company, so a lot of this information is available on our IR website. So if you go to ir.aptorumgroup.com, you'll be able to identify a corporate presentation, which basically contains this particular summary slide of some of our key stage assets as well. We constantly, I think you're allowed to also add your email to our newsletter, where we can add the email addresses of the investors or prospective investors onto our news distribution as well. In addition to, you can also find us on most of the major social media platforms, including things like LinkedIn, etc., which also contains some information of our assets as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it has been excellent to have you, Darren. Thanks for telling us a little bit about Aptorum today. It's ticker APM. That's Darren Lau. He's president and Executive Director at Aptorum. Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah.